This is the Kestrel Country Podcast, where we discuss the people, places, and events all around Kestrel Country.
Okay, so 2022, interest rates were rising, but it was still a super strong market. What has the arc of 2023 been for you as you've seen it? And then what do you think 2024 is going to bring?
Yeah. I mean, 2022 was still a strong market. But again, we saw something similar to what we're seeing now, which was as rates rose, it softened the market. Mm-hmm. And rates started rising in June of 2022 and really rose to about 7% by November of 2022. And that's when the market kind of ground to a halt. So it was really busy in the spring. It was a hot market for quite a bit of it. And then it almost ground to a complete halt. I mean, transactions were way, way down the winter months of last year. And I think 2023 is following a similar trajectory. I mean, the market overall is softer because rates have been higher, but rates were, back down into the fives in the spring of this year. And the market was kind of nuts. It wasn't nearly as nuts as it has been, but there was still competition. There were still homes selling over asking price. It was kind of crazy. But then as rates have risen, and now we're coming into November looking at 8% interest rates instead of 7%, we're seeing something similar. The last couple months, it's just really slowed down. And I think we'll, kind of come to a halt again. And some of it is, the sellers are in the position of almost everybody has, what was it, it's the vast majority of mortgages in this country are still sub 4%. It's crazy. So you're really looking at somebody selling their house if they're repurchasing a new house and having their interest rate double, right?
Well, as we were saying, their payment doubles. Essentially, the home price doubles. If they want to move on to something different, another mortgage. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. There's this a FOMO effect, I guess, of letting go of that low interest rate too. So it's not just that it's going to be harder to go out and buy something. It's a harder pill to swallow. But there's also this we have this asset that we're paying 3% on fixed for 30 years. I don't want to let that go. Maybe we should just keep it and rent it. Maybe, there's just this reluctance to get rid of this precious mortgage that they've got this amazingly historically low rate on. And I understand that. So it's weird because you would think that with these high interest rates, the market would really start dropping, right? But the supply demand principles are in play and the supply is super, super low still. And so what we're seeing is it's really kind of realtors and mortgage people and that kind of thing who are suffering the most because the market hasn't really dropped. It's just the total overall activity has dropped significantly. Yeah.
It's just fewer buyers and sellers.
We've pretty much kept our prices, but I think part of that too is that there's been such small margins for builders in the last several years because it's just been. We got caught in some bad situations where the market was rising faster than we were raising our prices, and so we were paying more. But builders just don't have that much of a margin to actually cut, prices, as well as that's simply what it costs to build a house. In 2021, we built a house, sold it for $287,000. I believe is a 1,100 square foot house. In 2022, we built the exact same house, exact same footprint, and sold it for $399,000, and we maybe made less on it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And land prices are going up too. Lot costs. You guys are obviously one of the things. The main thing we're going to talk about this morning is Woodbury.
Yeah.
And so you're doing development, not just building. And all those costs have gone up too. Right.
Yeah.
Whether that's labor or fuel, right? Or asphalt, concrete, all of those prices.
When we're talking about development, financing is one of the biggest things. So the bank is wanting higher interest rates. Private lenders want higher interest rates. So
everything is rising, and for developers, that's the main cost, is the holding cost of money. So that's really high. So time is very important to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're finally getting things going.
Yeah. Yes.
How long of was, first of all, Levi Wintz?
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Mike
in.
Church.
Yes.
Thanks for having me
I
on.
just feel like we should say your name.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wintz Company and Woodbury. So how long have you guys been working on this particular project?
So we're probably coming up on 3 years. The Woodbury property that we're going to be talking about today, it's kind of northeast of town, at the end of Slonaker Drive. Beautiful views of Moscow Mountain. So the Trails family owned it, and we had talked to them for a number of years about interest in buying property, and eventually they came back to us and said that they would be interested in selling land to us, and so we pitched it to them, and so that was maybe 3 years ago that those conversations started, and then we got some designs and got them to the city. So about 2.5 years, maybe 2.5 years ago now. I'm trying to remember. I believe so. No, 2 years ago. This was September of 2021. We got approvals in October. We started grading.
Okay.
So this was the big thing at Woodbury, was where we were building is a bunch of rolling hills, right? So in the Palouse region, there's just hills everywhere. There's almost no flat ground. And so the design that we wanted to do was based on a flat parcel. And so we moved 200,000 yards of dirt.
Wow.
Basically had 20-foot fills and cuts, and so that was end of 2021, and through majority of 2022, we were just grading the site, getting it ready. And then this year in the spring, we started putting in infrastructure and everything like that. And so we're now at the point in October 2023 where we have curbs in, we have our paving in, and we're going to be starting construction here on the first homes and next week. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's exciting. It's always cool when especially when the paving goes in. It's like there's something, being in real estate, right? Like there's something to when people can actually go and drive on the streets. And obviously you probably still have them closed and you're doing construction. But just that, it's amazing how much that changes everything. And
I think next spring we'll have structures up. The streets will be open. They'll be public city streets. And we'll have it ready, just kind of marketing and sales wise. It'll be a pleasant place to drive through. So we're actually even putting in some trees this year, because landscaping is going to be one of the keys to Woodbury, and just making it feel very full, and creating those shady tree lined streets. So yeah.
So that's one of the. I mean, it's interesting that you talked about your plan being a relatively flat parcel, because that is almost non-existent around here, right?
Yeah.
What went into that decision? Is it something to how the neighborhood feels when it's flatter? Is it ease of construction? Like what went behind the kind of flat idea of it?
It's a number of things, and that was really my colleague is my dad, Mark. So he worked on the initial design. We had a guy, Lawrence Kamar, come and do a charrette with us, and we did the initial plan for the site. And so part of making it flat was, yes, ease of construction, being able to get density. When the infrastructure wise, hills become a lot more difficult to work around, and you have to figure out how plumbing flows and all that sort of stuff. So there was simplicity in just making it flat. The other part is we've been building these pocket neighborhoods in Pullman, Washington. And we've been doing these single level cottages, and the main buyers there have been a lot of older people that like the main level living, and so creating a neighborhood that's very walkable and easy for people to get around. They don't need to be taking steps up to their house. They don't need to be parking on a slope and getting out in icy conditions as we have this morning. So just things like that we've thought a lot a lot about as well. How can we make this a safe place for older people and a fun place to be for younger people? And so we're trying to think about all those different dynamics as we design it.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're as far as that design, single level, is that mostly going to be single level, or is there going to be quite the variety? I know phase one, you're doing, how many homes are you guys starting right now?
So right now we're just going to get 3 started this year. That's just kind of the timing of it. So I think we'll only get in 3 foundations this year. But ideally what we want to be moving towards is building 15 to 20 homes a year. We've built 12 homes a year the last 3 years. And so we want to be increasing that. And part of that is just getting the construction market around us. You know, they're used to building 30 homes a year. So it's just a little bit of nurturing. And we think that Moscow can absorb more than it has. In the past, we've simply had a supply issue. So part of that is just increasing the construction base. But I'm sorry, your question was
the variety. So
variety, right?
Single level.
So part of this is getting in multiple typologies, hitting multiple demographics. So we want to have everything from the 1,100 square foot cottage up to the 3,500, 4,000 square foot house. We'll have townhomes there as well. So really we want to hit each market, each demographic. So there'll be single level, 2-story. There'll probably even be some 3-story with basements. We're doing about a third of the homes with basements. Okay. And I think that those are going to come across really well. We were down in Utah and saw those done well, 9-foot basements with big window wells that basically doesn't even feel like you're in a basement anymore. But really great place to have an extra family room and have the kids down there, have some extra bedrooms. And so that's also a way that we can keep the cost down of the homes.
Yeah, we have so many walkouts around here because of the rolling Palouse Hills. Mm-hmm. Are you keeping some terrain to where you'd have walkouts available, or
we're not doing?
Is it pretty much all flat now? I haven't really been out there.
It's pretty much all flat. 1% grade across the site, so that it flows a little bit. And then along the edges there will be some natural areas. So along the east edge of west edge of the development, we kind of have a natural area with a pond and walking trail and that type of stuff. So rather flat out there. Yeah. But we're selling homes. That's how we're making the money. But the idea behind Woodbury is really the neighborhood. That's where we've put all the effort in the design. And that's what we're going to be selling is the neighborhood. That's really what's going to make Woodbury unique. Yes, there's charming architecture in these different things, amenities that are going to be there, but really it's the neighborhood and the design that we've put into this site plan that I think is going to speak to people.
How long is that going to take shape? Right. So that's one of the things I'm just curious about. Obviously, everything always takes longer, or it seems like, than you want it to. But with just like 3 homes going in this first phase, is it going to take 2 or 3 phases before it starts to get that neighborhood feel and people get to actually understand like, oh, this is what Woodbury is going to feel like?
It's a good question. And I ask myself that a lot as well. I think we need to do our best as developers to incorporate that as early on as possible. I think the homes themselves are beautiful houses. I think the site itself is beautiful. So I think it will sell itself, but I think the real qualities of Woodbury will take a little time to show. Part of what we're trying to do is make sure that we do put amenities in early. You can't have a blank piece of dirt and say there's going to be a park there and expect people to pay extra. You know, people don't do a great job generally of visualizing things. Right. And so build the park first, and then everyone will see it, and that will affect their buying habits. So that's generally what we're going to try to do, is make sure that we invest in the amenities. And it is an investment, because even though we're going to build it, you know, we were just talking about this, financing costs are really high right now. But being able to invest in the amenities and get them in first, I think will start to shape it a little more. Also, we have so many amenities and parks and trails that each year we're going to be building some part of that. So from day one, that will kind of start manifesting itself, and you'll see build out of partial trails and a park here and a park there.
And so is that part of you're mentioning you even are starting to plant trees now?
Yeah.
So doing some of that landscaping. And I know that that's one of those things that is kind of the above and beyond that a lot of folks don't do. But you can even, like from when your dad was involved in green sides, right? Like even just that entrance, right?
Much landscaping.
Yeah, so much landscaping and where the mailbox thing, right? It's just like beautifully done. Those few homes that he did in there on that first street they're still gorgeous, right? And they still command a premium because of that. And I think that's a good testament to, okay, this is what it's going to be like. Was there pocket neighborhoods? Obviously, it's probably harder to do a lot of that amenities, and you're going to have it's just smaller.
Yeah.
But do your developments in Pullman have some of that? If
a little
already?
bit. The first one we did, the Kamiak cottages, it was 12 cottages all facing onto a common shared green space with a commons building there. And so the amenities there were the lawn and the commons building. And we see that being used a lot. Actually, the commons building is being used for more than I thought it would.
Right.
I was recently talking with one of the residents over there, and they were saying that they didn't expect to have the type of community that they have there now. I think he was saying that most people bought these because they're all 1,300 square foot cottages. They're the cheapest thing on the market. But then they found that there's kind of in this community that's risen. They use the commons building for book clubs. People host book clubs, not just for the community members, but other people come. It's just kind of a bigger gathering space for people to go to. So book clubs. He was saying that all the residents were planning like a Thanksgiving potluck together and an Oktoberfest party, and they did a July 4th party earlier in the year. And so it was really fun talking to him because he was kind of beaming. He's like, I just really love the community that we have here. And everyone sits on the front porches and talks to each other, then their Adirondack chairs and talk to each other across this lawn. Because the space is intimate enough for that. And nobody was expecting that, but they have that. And so that was really heartening for us to hear, because we talk in the office all the time about how to design community and how to affect people and compel people to connect with one another. And to hear that's actually happening, it's not just this esoteric idea that we talk about, that it's actually working to some effect, was really, really nice to hear.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And that one's done. You guys have sold.
That one's done. All of those sold before we even finished construction.
Awesome.
So, and then we have 9 other cottages just nearby on a different project. 2 of those are remaining. So, if anybody wants to be part of an amazing little community,
go check it out.
Yeah, go check it out.
What's that one called?
So that's Hidden View Cottages, and then right next door we're doing 6 homes in a similar fashion they're same design but more 2,100 to 2,600 nicer homes, all facing on an inner courtyard together. So that project's under construction right now, and I'm really excited about that. So all the projects though that we've been doing in Pullman is we've been just kind of working out our architecture, working out these ideas, kind of going through iterations and testing things. So all of the Pullman projects have just been gearing us up for Moscow to make sure we really make a splash here.
That's good to hear. Yeah.
And we are excited
Pullman's
to get out of Pullman.
It's just a testing ground.
Yeah.
It's like guinea pig, but the real winners in Moscow. That's right.
Exactly.
That's the way it should be.
And that's what that's the whole Woodbury project. This comes a little further back to just development practices. But as a developer, I think there's been a history of development that people are aware of, that developers just come in and they just build as many houses as they can, just kind of rape the land, take as much equity as they can, and then leave. And so the development philosophy that we want to push forward at Wintz Company is, no, we're actually going to be here. We're good neighbors, and we want to build equity rather than take equity. So all of those ideas of investing in the amenities, investing in the architecture, investing in the trees, is that we're not looking at the next 5 years. We're looking at the next 20 years, you know, of how can we make this a really special place? It should make good business sense also, but on a longer time frame, and making sure that we're investing in the town that we love, and we're developing in a disciplined way, in a way that's really going to help not only the community itself, but the surrounding community in all of Moscow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What you keep saying amenities. What are all the amenities there? I mean, you mentioned parks and paths. Is there going to be common building like you have at the cottages in Pullman? Mm-hmm. What's that going to look like in Woodbury?
Yeah, so we're gonna have little commons buildings around, similar to what it was in that pocket neighborhood. So we actually have a number of pocket neighborhoods. They're all connected by trails throughout Woodbury. Okay. So a lot of different little neighborhoods that will have their own identities and ideally have their own commons buildings as well. So that's something that we're building this year, building 3 homes and a little commons building.
Wow. Talk about investing in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You only have 3 homes to offset that, right?
Yeah. And short term, we'll use it as a little sales office as well.
Okay.
But yeah, so commons buildings, we hope that we'll have a bigger community center that can kind of serve as a community center, indoor sports, pickleball court. You know, we're working out that idea of creating a civic commons building that serves greater needs and probably can serve as an events place.
So is the commons buildings that you're doing, like maybe in Pullman or this first one, how big is that? And what is it, kind of just an open space that people can book?
No, people can book it. And the commons building that we're designing here is inside, little gas fireplace with seating area, a long dining room table type thing with countertops on one side with a sink, so you can kind of host, you know, maybe a birthday party in there or something like that. But indoor sitting area that's kind of cozy for the winter time. Then also right outside, there's a connected seating area with an outdoor fire pit. So multiple, and then another seating area on the other side. So just creating a bunch of little spaces where people can sit. We'll have fire pits, different styles of fire pits kind of throughout the neighborhood, just creating these tiny little pockets where you can do things. And so when I talk about amenities, we can go through a list of, yes, we want to put in pickleball courts, some sports courts here, parks here, trails here. But along all of that, just creating these little pockets of little barbecue, little community gardens, fire pits, you know, just whatever comes up. And I think part of that is we're going to be here for the next 20 years. So there's a lot of amenities and we have a lot of ideas of what those could be. But I think also seeing how the community itself grows and almost even getting feedback from people that are there of what they'd like to see. Because this is going to be an HOA community. And so we're going to be putting in all these things, but ultimately the HOA needs to maintain them. And so we want to make sure that we're not putting in things that are going to be really expensive for the HOA to maintain and people will never use. So yeah, we really want to be careful about what we put in also. We don't want to just like throw a bunch of stuff out there and then say good luck.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my next question is like, how does that become sustainable, right?
Yeah.
What does that fee structure look like? So at the beginning, will you all, the developer, will be running it, maintaining it, all that kind of thing until you get a significant portion of homeowners there who are paying HOA dues, or
so how the HOA works is that the developer will maintain control of the HOA till 100% of the lots are sold. So we'll be managing the HOA for the next 20 years probably. But on top of that, you will start paying HOA dues year one, but the developer kind of covers all the additional costs.
Remaining lots, essentially.
Essentially. So yes, that gets expensive for us as well. But
do you have a projection on what dues are going to be?
Yeah, it's going to be about $180 a month.
Okay.
And I think a lot of that too is going to be things that people would be paying for anyway. So the HOA is a really different idea for Idaho.
For Moscow.
For
Idaho,
Moscow,
probably,
but
yeah.
Idaho,
Yeah.
you know. So
We like our freedom, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And it sounds very controlling and people don't like that idea. But the idea behind the HOA, if I may sell it for a second,
Yeah, for sure.
is that
Do it.
it keeps your property values high. That's the whole point. Keep your property values high, as well as give you more things that you wouldn't typically have access to for cheap. So those amenities as well. It's maintaining the amenities. It's clearing snow. So we have a few private streets as well as the sidewalks we want cleared, because walking is a really important part of the neighborhood. So making sure that people still can walk even in the wintertime when it's snowing here, as well as I was telling you about just the older contingent. We want to make sure that people don't get stuck in their houses or something like that. So clearing snow up to the front porch is another part of it. Maintaining the landscaping, which is going to be a really important part. Mm-hmm. So maintaining all the common area landscaping and mowing the parkways, and so just making sure that everything's maintained and taken care of.
But then access to those commons buildings and stuff,
Exactly.
too, right? Which it seems like I assume part of the idea was you've got these really small little homes, and one of the downsides to that is you maybe don't have a bigger gathering place if you wanted to host something.
Yeah.
But you could book this commons building and have a bigger gathering, like your book club or 4th of July party or whatever.
Yeah, and that's part of the designing community is creating more public spaces, shared public spaces that encourage people to go out and use. So this is a delicate balance, creating private places for people to be. So that would be their houses, and then we want to create in their lot, little outdoor patio, little lawn, someplace where they can go and retire and be private, but also encouraging people, compelling people to go out and interact with their neighbors. This was another interaction I had with a recent customer. Was she was saying she was in between two unsold cottages. So she was saying that she needs to interview whoever's going to buy the final cottages, because she really likes the neighborhood right now. She really likes the neighbors. She doesn't want some pill moving in. And after having a lot of these interactions with neighbors, I told her that I was like, actually, I think that you'll most likely enjoy whoever moves in here, because what I've found is that people are generally suspicious of their neighbors because they don't interact with them a ton. And when you don't interact with somebody, you don't really know if you can trust them. But when you're sharing sidewalks and you have to walk to your car or whatever, and you're running into your neighbors regularly and they say hi, people are generally nice. So so having those interactions, she for the first time she was saying she's having those interactions. She's like, it's so nice, like running into my neighbor and knowing my neighbor's name, and we say hi every single morning because we just see each other. That's how we've designed it to be. So I was just telling her, I was like, people are generally nice. So I think you'll enjoy whoever moves in here.
Yeah. Well, that's funny. That reminds me of a quote we throw around all the time. Negativity fills the void of communication, right? Like, so if you don't see somebody for a while, or you haven't talked to somebody a while, it's easy to kind of just start assuming negative things on either part, right? Like, oh, maybe they don't like me anymore. Maybe, right? But it's like that negativity when you're not interacting with people all the time starts to fill in.
Yeah.
And I would also think that, right, there's going to be some self-selection. Like somebody who really doesn't like HOAs and common area spaces or whatever probably isn't going to buy one of the lots, right?
And so I'm fine with that.
Right. So you're going to have some of that self-selection where it's generally going to be people who are into the idea who are moving there anyway.
Right. Yeah. And that's totally okay. We live in Idaho where people want to move here and they want to get their own little slice of private Idaho and move into the country. But from a biblical worldview, I look at things and I understand that humans are meant to be in community. That's how God designed us to be. So I want to do my part in encouraging that. So the developments that we're doing here, I'll back up a little bit. We have a lot of demand for housing. And I've heard a lot of people saying, why don't you just build affordable housing? That's what we need. There's so much demand that the only obligation that developers have is to just build housing. Just do the same 3 designs over and over again. People are going to buy it because they need to buy it. We're in a housing shortage. Just do that. But I also understand as a developer that developers really shape our built environment. So if we only work off of demand, our built environment is going to continue to build out in the same way it's built out for the last 80 years, which is just the same 3 houses over and over again into unlimited suburban sprawl. You get your little quarter-acre lot, whatever, and bam, 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 down the street. What we tried to do with Woodbury is look at something different. How can we supply something to the market that doesn't currently exist? And how do humans actually live? And how can we tap into that and give them something that they don't even know that they want right now? So we went back and looked at kind of traditional neighborhood designs, looking at all the great things that we love about all the old neighborhoods that are in America and Europe as well. And then also looked at things at a human scale. This is the other different part, I think, for Americans, is that all of our built environment right now is built around the car. The car has really been the catalyst for how things have developed in the scale, meaning the width of the streets, the size of the lots, even the architecture of the homes, because we have all of our garages on the front of the homes. So how do we design around humans first and then allow cars to partake in that as well, rather than the other way around? So creating a pedestrian-friendly area, putting the garages on the back of the houses so that you can come in and the front of your house can, 1, look good, and 2, can serve as a spot of a front porch where you like to enjoy your time. You look out onto a park, you wave hi to neighbors, that type of thing. Decreasing the size of the streets, making cars go slower intuitively, rather than giving them as much space as they could want to drive however fast they feel. So doing things intuitively to slow cars down, welcome people to walk. It sounds very disconnected from reality, but we found these things. It's like you can do little design things to encourage actions from people, and better people's lives. And I think that a lot of people just haven't been exposed to that. And so I hope through the years at Woodbury, we start to expose people to that and help them understand why this is a better way to live. And so a big part of this too, that I know will rub people in Idaho the wrong way too, is the idea of density. So I was just down in Texas, and Texas is booming, and there's unlimited flat land.
Yeah.
So people just sprawl like crazy. And so I was in this really wonderful little town, but it's grown like crazy over the last 20 years. And so it's just sprawled. And so there's really cool historic little pockets, but you have to drive everywhere. I walked to church and I had to walk in like a drainage ditch to get to church because there was no sidewalks. I had to Uber you couldn't get around town without a car. So part of this is like creating density so that you can enjoy your house, but then keep more green spaces and shared places for people to interact, rather than giving everybody a quarter-acre lot. Create denser lots and create more public spaces for people instead.
Yeah, so I'm going to push back on you a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe not push back, but it's like you're still going to have to drive everywhere. Maybe not everywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe not to your fire pit, right? But like Woodbury is out on the northeast side of town, right? To get to work, to get to downtown, to get to, like, you're still going to have to, it's going to be something similar, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe coupled with that is what's the counter to, well, cities should be providing these amenities. Why is it this private kind of entity kind of thing doing it? Like, what will the community be like, other than, hey, people drive here, then they kind of walk around their neighborhood, but then they're still driving everywhere anyway. I don't know. That was a weird question, but I guess some of what I'm getting at is how is it different as a development than it is as like a municipality, right? A walkable town versus a walkable neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, I'd actually like to hear, let's go back and forth on this, because I'd like to hear your thoughts and kind of, Okay, so first question was, well, how is it people are going to need to get in their cars?
Drive around
They're going to drive anyway. Yeah. And the car is a wonderful thing in the sense of
I'm from Detroit.
It's provide. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't mean to offend you. No, the car is a wonderful thing because it's provided people so much freedom.
Yeah,
and that freedom is a really good thing. So that part of cars is wonderful, but overall, and we don't deal with traffic here in Moscow at all. But overall, people, I think, generally would say they'd like to spend less time in cars.
For sure.
You don't want to have to drive everywhere. So that's the first tenet is how do we create a walkable neighborhood that has neighborhood business as Woodbury will have, that takes down daily trips. This isn't like the 15-minute city that's being talked about in Europe where it's like, you don't need to own anything. Like everything will be provided for you. It's not a utopian thing like that. It's just thinking about my daily life. What do I do? And how could that be made easier? So you have the option not to get in your car and drive to Winco because there's eggs, bread, and milk at the marketplace that's a block away from you that you could just walk to with your kids. They could play at the park or whatever it is while you go in. You can walk down to the pub or the coffee shop or whatever it is. All those little daily things. It's eliminating daily trips, not eliminating the need for cars.
So that's going to be a key part to Woodbury then.
Absolutely.
That little neighborhood business.
Absolutely.
Section.
Yeah. So there's a school of thought called New Urbanism, which is the design theory that we've based Woodbury off of. And one of their main things is creating the 5-minute walk. So you should be able to reach everything that you need within a 5-minute walk of those daily needs. And so, yeah, it's not cutting down on the car. We live in a car dependent society, and I don't think that's going to change for a very long time. But what we can do is eliminate the need to take, 5 daily trips to 1 or 2 daily trips. And so that you can spend more time in the place where you live, you get more interaction with your neighbors. Your kids are, this is a big thing we think about is like, how do we create an environment where this is the environment that kids are going to grow up in? We're building the parks that they're going to play at, the trails that they're going to ride their bikes on. Like this is going to be their whole world. So that's a really high bar, that we hold ourselves to of just we have the ability to affect people's lives in a really serious way. So how do we make it the best life possible for them?
Yeah. How was it dealing with the city on some of those design choices? Was the city of Moscow pretty receptive to it? Some of what I've seen, somewhat anecdotally, is just it's like, yeah, it'd be great to have smaller streets, but they're requiring us to put in this enormous double sidewalk, this big wide street. Like some of their design standards from a city perspective made it such that it's hard to do those things. Were they pretty easy to deal with on
the city overall has been wonderful, but there are these just design standards that it's just the easy answer is, well, that's what the book says. And that's their answer for a lot of things. Well, this is what the book says. And we can come with as much data and information as we can of like the 34-foot, street is actually less safe than the 28-foot wide street. There's just so much bureaucracy that's involved in municipality and just government in general that it's just hard to cut through that red tape. It's really easy answers for them. But the city, I think we did get 2 feet off of the street width, the overall street width on one of the main streets, which I throw out this word sustainable development, and I think it can put people in a weird place because sustainability is what do you mean when you're saying that? But just from I think as Christians we should be discerning in how we do things. And when I say sustainable development, I'm like, why are we putting an extra 2 feet of asphalt for thousands and thousands and thousands of feet, taking up extra land, taking up extra costs, extra maintenance money when it's not needed at all and it's actually less safe. So that's when I've thrown out that word before, but that's what I mean. It's just like that's not sustaining of the environment at all. You're just taking up extra land unnecessarily and extra costs. Like
more impermeable surface.
Yeah,
more water issues. Yeah, more heat issues. Even right, like that's But
so
the city was had some level of receptiveness to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And I think when we initially came through the city council meeting, the city council was ecstatic, I would say, about the design that we put forward. And they're like, we've been waiting for someone to do something like this. They've really been waiting to get an extra neighborhood business zone started in Moscow. So they're excited about that, and said this was the best neighborhood design that Moscow's ever seen. So that was really, really, really nice to see.
But there's city council and then there's staff.
Yeah. So then we moved to the staff. And actually one of the big design things is the fire department controls a lot of every single space in every single neighborhood needs to be able to fit a 40-foot long fire truck for some reason. That's we don't have anything smaller. So the 40-foot long 4-story fire truck goes everywhere, and it has to go everywhere. So that was probably design wise the hardest thing to work around. That was the hardest line that we ran into, was the fire department needed their stuff, and so we did a lot of creative things. Ultimately, what resulted is we got a few of the lanes are private, so the alleyway systems are private because they're 20 feet wide, and they didn't fit necessarily within the city standards. So they said they wouldn't maintain them, but we could build them, and we made them accessible to the fire trucks. So that was a little bit of the trade-off. The other part of it was the park system. So we decided to keep majority of the parks private, simply for the fact of the city was like, well, we'll put a play set there, but it was like in 20 years, and that's anti what we're trying to build. We want to invest in those amenities up front. So that was a little bit of a harder thing for us as well, of like, if we want to do this right, we should just do it ourselves. The private dollar is going to work faster than the public dollar.
Yeah. But were you still required to dedicate parkland to the city?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there'll be some city parks as well.
Yeah. So there's that kind of western edge is a whole natural area that we're creating a shared use pathway for the city. So that more than served for the city's parkland dedication. Then all the parks there are actually still going to be publicly accessible. They're just privately owned and maintained.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What about parking? So it's kind of an interesting thing I've been thinking through. So like your neighborhood business zone, right? You're going to have, hopefully, right, some grocery, restaurant, coffee shop, those kind of places.
Fine dining, hopefully. Also
accessible to the broader community, right? So people will be driving in to Woodbury to go visit these places, right? How have you guys been thinking about parking as it relates to that? Because it's one of these weird, I almost feel like it's a catch-22, right? It's like parking is either super convenient and then and it's not full, right? Or you end up with a ton of parking taking up valuable space that otherwise could be better utilized, like you pointed out, right?
Yeah.
But, what went into your thinking there? Because I feel like that's the downtown thing, right? It's like there's people who complain about Moscow's parking. It's like parking is this big problem, and
which is so funny because I've never had that issue. I mean, like the longest I've looked for a parking spot is like a minute and a half or two, and it's like maybe I park an extra block away than what I expected to park.
Yeah, it's all there. It's relative, right, to what you're expecting, but also realizing that parking, it can take up valuable downtown real estate if you're going to require all this parking, and if something is vibrant, it's going to mean that there probably will be less parking available, right? Like it's busy, it's going to be full, right?
Right.
So
part of the parking was we have a lot of on-street parking throughout the development, and then we put all private parking in the back. So the street should be accessible for a lot of on-street parking from other people. We've also created, instead of doing a parking lot, we don't have a parking lot planned on the development, but we have cut out a lot of little spaces, and each neighborhood business will have its own little parking spot. So there's more than enough parking out there. it may be less accessible than a lot of people. Like they may need to park a block and a half away and walk to the neighborhood business zone.
Enjoy the walking paths.
That's exactly the point. Is like we almost want that, because the point is that it's the entire environment. It's the ambiance of the environment that we're creating, and that's the important part. I'd almost rather someone park a block away and walk down the street and enjoy that and enjoy that walk. Yeah. Yeah. So there's more than enough parking. You need parking because we don't have any public transport or anything like that. You can't create so you need parking.
Yeah. How does that, in terms of like, will the HOA govern parking within either on someone's lot or, it's just one of those funny things. I feel like as my family's growing up, like all of a sudden realizing like you can pretty quickly have one house have like 4 or 5 cars. Like you get a few kids driving, and all of a sudden it's like, well, there's just so many cars around. Is that something that like HOA will govern on street parking, or will the streets mostly will be public streets?
The streets will be public streets.
Okay.
So
typical Moscow.
Yeah. I think it's 48-hour limit. The HOA does have regulations on parking RVs or boats in the street. So there's none of that. And we have,
so somebody might be able to make some money with some RV or boat storage. If you're, just thinking.
We're planning for that. So it's, you don't want to discourage people, and that's so much of a, people have a lot of RVs, boats, that type of thing. So we want to be able to provide for that as well. So we're thinking of ways that we can do that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
When, maybe getting a little farther ahead, but like when will the whole neighborhood business, some of that, how far out realistically is that from becoming a reality?
Well, I see the neighborhood business zone as an amenity as well to the neighborhood. Hopefully this becomes a really vibrant part that will blend, the residential area will blend naturally into the neighborhood business zone. And so we would like to get going on it. Right now is 2025 is my idea of when we're going to start building that, and maybe 2026 actually have it open and ready to go. So that's a big part that I'm starting on right now, actually, is getting the right people in there. It's going to need to be, downtown Moscow is such a nice amenity for Moscow. It's really, 100%. Really wonderful. I mean, it brings people from Pullman, people from all around come to downtown Moscow. So
how do you compete with that?
Yeah.
Right.
So we can't directly compete with it. So how is Woodbury going to be unique? There's going to be a base of people there, 300 homes that will serve the neighborhood business zone. But I think that we will need to draw people from outside. So thinking about how we're going to be doing that, it's one, providing all those little things that the community needs: a nice coffee shop, little marketplace, probably blending, a few of these into maybe a one-stop shop. We don't have a really like a pastry bakery, so we're thinking about that. How could something like that? There's not one in downtown Moscow that comes to mind. Fine dining. Fine dining doesn't really need a lot of foot traffic. People are going to go to it. They're going to plan for it and go to it. We're going to have a little inn there. So I think a fine dining place and attached to the inn.
Cool.
Yeah. So we have a bunch of ideas. We've had people reaching out to us, and my job is finding the right mix of, does this fit into Woodbury's feel of what we want to do? There's also the idea that I want to put forward of experiencing new things, doing coffee tastings, doing wine tastings, something like that that's going to be experiential.
Events.
Yeah, it's going to be we're going to have a lot of events at Woodbury as well. Actually, like $5 of the HOA goes to basically like a party planning fund for the HOA, so that Woodbury itself can put on Christmas events or whatever it may be, or put lights up for Christmas, do a fireworks show, whatever it may be. There will be funds for that. And so we want to create a lively experience out there, and we want the businesses that are there to partake in that as well. The other thing that the businesses are going to benefit from is Wintz company itself being the developer. We want to invest, making sure that is successful is crucial to the entire development. And so we're going to put a lot of marketing power into making sure that those businesses are successful as well. And so I'm really excited about who we get out there, and I want to be very careful as well that it's the right mix of people that are going to draw people over there and make it a really special place to be.
It sounds like a ton of fun.
Oh, it's amazing.
You're having a lot of fun.
Oh, I love this. It was funny. Like, it was actually after I started doing development, I was trying to think back about like, what do I really love doing? Like, I was thinking back to like when I was a kid, and what's my favorite thing to do? And I realized I really love creating environments. Like, I loved building things, but as the kid that like every time when dinner hit, I would like go and like turn on music. We had like a computer in the kitchen that was hooked up to speakers. I'd like go turn on the music and dim all the lights, and I'd light all the candles. And like, I was really concerned about like the ambiance, you know? And so I was just reflecting on that and realizing like, that's a little bit of what you get to do now as a developer, is think about how people are interacting with the environment around them and how you can affect them. You know, what are they hearing? What are they seeing? What are they feeling? You know, and being able to think about that and cater to that. And people probably aren't going to pay attention to all that, but they're going to feel a certain way, maybe not even know why they feel a certain way. But hopefully there's all these little subtle things that we've done throughout the development that bring them to that place and make them feel like this is a place that I want to be.
Home.
Yeah. We want people to feel special. We also don't want Woodbury to be, Woodbury is going to be nice, and we're creating a slightly step up product. But as I was saying before, we want to hit as many demographics as we can, and not have it be a walled community in any type of way. Woodbury is going to be accessible to everyone, and we want everyone there. We want everyone to feel welcome at Woodbury and be able to enjoy all the spaces, even if they're privately owned parks. It's all public access. So we want other people at Woodbury that aren't just living there as well. That's going to be what makes it feel like a community and a unique neighborhood.
Is that going back to like your lighting candles and all that?
Yeah.
So has development always been something you're interested in doing? Is this more recent for you? How did that come about? Obviously, you're joining your dad's business.
Yeah.
But yeah, is this?
Yeah, it's been. I didn't know what I wanted to do for a long time. Development was something that I was interested in and excited about. Some of my sisters went into architecture as well, and so my dad has had a great effect on all the kids. And so, I was interested in doing development, but also my dad was just a lone wolf. He didn't have a company necessarily that he was working with, or a team that he was working with. He just did one-off projects on his own. And so when this came about 3 years ago, and we started talking about this, it's like, well, there's an opportunity for me to possibly join you and actually make a company out of this. And so that's kind of been the process over the last 3 years is joining forces and doing that. And so it was an interest up until 3 years ago. And then starting into it, I was like, okay, I think I might really enjoy this. And then since then, it's just been the funnest thing ever. Working with my dad, first of all, you know, people get worried about working with family. It's been the best experience I could have, better than I even thought it would be. We work really well together. We have complementary strengths. And then just learning from him, I've literally got a master class in real estate development and design from him. I was considering going and getting my master's and doing this in the last 2 years, and I really realized in the recent months, I was like, I've gotten it. I'm ahead of where I think I would be if I did any type of formal education, and so it's really been wonderful. And this is what I want to do. I've really been pouring myself into educating myself and figuring out how I can have the most impact possible. Woodbury is really going to be special, I'm really excited about it. We're learning a lot, but I also hope that, it's just another stepping stone and that we're able to do bigger, better, and beautiful things.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting. I'm super excited to see it come together, and that's awesome. Are you going to be living there?
Hopefully.
Maybe that's a personal question, but it's kind of, you keep talking about it. I was like, it'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah. Hopefully, if these interest rates will go down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we were just talking about that, but
Yeah.
hopefully all that timing works out well for you guys. And I do think that there is obviously a lack of supply, and people need places to live. So they're going to work it out one way or another, but it would sure be helpful if interest rates could drop a little bit in the next year or so.
I mean, this was the other thing with the going through that city council process and hearing from concerned community members. I've lived in Moscow for the last 20 plus years, and my position is I love Moscow and I want other people to be able to experience it as well. So how can we do that the best way possible? We can't really have the just anti-growth and say this is only for the people that are here, and there can be nobody else that lives here. People are going to keep moving here because this is a really special place. And so let's continue to add and make it an even more special place.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great.
Well, thanks, Levi.
Hey, thank you so much, Mike.
Thanks for joining us. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next week.